Welcome to tutorial number 2 on advanced steel tutoring. Alright, so today we are going to continue with our project that we started on previous lesson. And today the main focus is on adding tool palettes that we need to activate in order for us to do our projects. We need to add grid lines, we need to add columns, rafters, and connections. So you will notice as we proceed that in some cases, I will be pointing out two methods of doing the same thing so that you can see that there's a manual and there's an automated method of doing your model and stuff like that. It just makes things easy as you go. So you can choose whichever method suits you and you think that you're able to use and manipulate the model as you do your work. So this is what you're looking at. It's a reminder of the project that we're working on. It's a 15 by 15 by 8-meter overhead crane shed. So this is what we're going to be using. So let's go to our advanced still. All right, so this is the layout on our advanced still. So the first tool palette that we need to activate in advanced steel is the advanced steel 2 palette itself, and this is found on, if you go to your ribbon under home and you go to extended modeling, right under extended modeling, you'll find this button here says advanced steel 2 palette. So you left click on it. That's how you activate it. So in order to see the options that you've got under this tool palette, you just click the plus sign, which is like your drop down arrow. You'll see that you've got all these options that you've got. They are categorized to usage. So you've got your move, copy, mirror. You've got a lot of these options that you can use for a serious lot of options that you can use during the project. UCS, how to highlight things that are assembled or bolted or welded in the workshop, things that are bolted or welded on site. This is where you can highlight them as well. So it's got a lot of tools to use. Then the second tool palette that you need to activate is the connection vault. So activate that. So under connection vault, this is where you find all connections that are available and in advanced still. All your connections that are available in this connection vault, whether it's beam to beam, beam to column, bracings, tube bracings, purlins, miscellaneous, all your connections, you find them under the connection vault. So what I usually like to do, so that these two pallets just don't float around individually, I just move any of the two just to position it just below the two pallet above, right? So when you do that, you have combined them. Now you can move these as an individual, so it becomes more like a tree, two pallets. So it's a nifty trick to use. So it's helpful. It's very helpful. Then from there, we need to add 3 more tool palettes. We go to output, and under output, we go to documents. So under documents, you see that we've got these 3 buttons here. We've got the drawing process, drawing styles, drawing process, BOM templates. These tool palettes, these 3 tool palettes, these are the ones that you use when you're now doing your documentation. Whether it's assembled drawings, single part drawings, elevations, specialized views, bill of material, shipping list, boat list, you find all that documentation within these 3 tool palettes. So let's also add them to our 2 existing there. Just drag it, put it under, and then they are combined. It's now one item. So you can now move them to wherever you want to put them on your screen. So now with the tool palettes, you will see how we're going to use them as we proceed with the tutorials. No need to worry about that. I'll also be explaining clearly as we do our project. So then the next step that we need to do is to create our grid lines. So we go to output, Under output, you go to grids. So under grid, you've got these options that you can use to create, edit your grid lines, create different shapes of grid lines. So the one that we need to use here is building grid. So you left click that, select that, and then let's input our first point where our grid is going to start, which is 0, 0, 0. Then we say enter. Remember our portal frame is a 15 by 15. So on the X, we want to add 15 meters. Then 15 on the Y as well. Then enter. So this is what our grid line looks like. This is what our grid looks like. So as you see that you've got numerical numbers all over the grid, we need to edit that so that we've got alphabetic and numerical. So how do you add your grid line? You select one of the grid lines, as you can see, then they are highlighted as a group. So you can edit on the Y, you can edit on the X. So select the group and then right click and then go to advanced properties. So this is this tab is the one that allows you to edit your grid lines. So all right, so let's edit our grid lines. So the first thing that we need to do is just to, put a balloon around our labels. So edging there, we can either change this to capital letters, small letters, or numbers. So we're just going to leave it as numbers. Then that's fine. And remember, our grid lines are supposed to be at 5 meters each from each other. So you go to sequence, that's where you see the distances. So if you see here, it says number, we've got 4, and then distances between is 5 meters. So if you change this distance, it's going to also change the number of of your grid lines. So at the moment, we're not concerned about that. So let's go to our next grid set of grid lines, and then we say advanced properties. The other way of invoking that grid tab editing is just to simply double click on the grid and then it pops out. So now this time we're going to add our edging, and then we're going to use capital letters so that you can be able to differentiate on the grid lines. So there we go. That's how you add your grid lines. Let's just put our, all right, so that's how we add our grid line. So the next thing is to add our columns and our rafters. So I'm going to show you two methods. The first one is the manual, and then I'll show you the automated one. It's simple. It's got a default button that you just click and then you just add it from the tab for the portal frame. So we're going to start with the manual way. The manual way now is by adding the columns and the rafters manually, individually. So how do we do that? We just go to home, and then we come here where it says object. And you've got this that says rolled eye sections. You click the drop down arrow, it will show you all the profiles, all the still profiles that are available in advanced 2. And we want this one. This can either be a universal beam or universal column, but you can still change it even to an angle ion during the process. I'll show you how. So let's select that. Okay, all right, select that, go to our first point, which is A and 1 insertion point. Then we insert our height. Our height is 8310, which is to the eaves height from our drawing. Then we hit enter. All right, the command is not yet completed. So if you want to exit the command, you have to hit enter twice. So now here what we're going to do, we're going to place another column on the other side. Hence the command is not yet complete. So we do the same thing, 8310, then we hit enter. So now to finish the command, we hit enter again. So you hit enter twice. So when you hit enter twice, you're going to bring up this this tab. This is the tab where you are able to modify, rotate, change your still section, name your still section, add your material, add your painting and all that kind of stuff. So first of all, according to our project, let's go to our project, our column, which is this one, which is A. This is our column. Our material on the column is a U-beam 406 by 178 by 54. That's the material that we need to use, and this is the material that we need to use there. All right, so let's go back to our advanced still. So we go to this area here. All right, so the first drop-down arrow shows you the profiles that you have. As you can see, you've got flat bars, angle ions, Kingspan products, round bar, square, and all that. Then the second drop-down arrow gives you the environment. So first of all, the product, the still section profile, and then now the environment. So from there, we want to use the South African environment or South African still section. So we just follow the arrow and then you just type S. So it's going to bring you down to South African still sections. So we're going to use U-beam, and then the second arrow now, that's where the second drop down arrow is where you can choose the specific section that you want to use. So we want to use a 406 by 178 by 54, which is this one, right? Exactly. So it already automatically updates. It automatically updates. The moment you change, it updates. Then the next step is for you to choose your material grade. So you can put whatever material grade that you want. This is going to appear on the bill of material and on your drawing when you're now doing your fabrication drawings. And then as well as your coating, whether it's 2-layer coating, galvanized, painted, none. So we're going to add painted. So this as well, the coating as well is going to appear on your drawing and on your bill of material. All right, so from there, we go to positioning. Positioning now, you're positioning according to, if you see on your still section, you've got this red line axis, this axis line, which is in red in color. It points out the insertion point where you inserted your beam or your column or your rafter. So from there, you choose the position that you want, whether you want it on the center of the flange, corner of the flange, wherever that you want to just pick according to the points. And then if you want to rotate it, you can rotate using these points there. So that's how you rotate them. And then from there, we go to naming. Now under naming, we want to go to model row. We just want to change this that says none to a specific name. So these are columns. We want to change the model row to column. This also helps when you're now doing your detailing. It's going to do labeling or numbering according to the model row. There are many functions where you can use a model row in advanced, or whether you're creating queries or creating your documentation. There are many ways to use model. So from here, we want to change this to column. So you just type C and then look for column. There we are. We've got our column. Anything else here, we don't need really to involve ourselves in all of that. The other thing that I would like to point out is the display. You might want to use this here or there when you're doing your project. So the display type. All right, so if we go and check our profile, as you can see, our profile does not have all those fillets that are supposed to be there when you actually look at a still section. So in order to have those fillets or the actual visual of the still section, you can switch on all these options to give you the actual that you're looking for. So for you to actually have the features, all the features of the still section, you use this one, edge with edge features. That's the one that you use. So as you can see now, all those fillets that are actually there when you take a look at the still section, they are now appearing on your still section. So we want to use the standard. That's what we want to use, because in most cases you're going to be using or referencing to this axis line, the one in red. All right, so from there we are done putting our columns. Then the next thing is to put our rafters. So our apex height is a 10 meters, so we're going to do a little bit of construction. All right, let's say line. We want a line. Then we want this line to be at 10 meters high. All right, then from there we continue with our line to the center of our axis on the column. All right, enter. So in Advanced Still, you can create a beam manually by placing it and defining the length or the height, or you can create a still section from a line. So for example, I want to put a rafter, right? I want to add a rafter, which is going to be exactly following the path of this line. So what I then do is I then come to, on your ribbon, you go to objects, either objects or home, and you look for this tab, for this button that says beam from line, and it's under objects, beam from line. If you go to objects on your ribbon, it's still under beams. It says beam from line. So you select that. It will tell you on your command line to say select the line or arcs. So we select our line and then we hit enter. It's going to ask again, delete delete selected objects. So it's up to you whether you want to delete the line or you want to keep the line. So I'm going to hit enter. Once this is done, our still tab, editing tab comes out. So this is how you can add a beam from a line. All right, so from there, let's check the properties of the beam of the rafter that we need to use. Here, our rafter is using label C. So this is our rafter. So we need to go to our member legend and we look for C. So C is a 305 by 165 by 45. So let's go back to Advanced Still. And still sections, I say it has already selected the environment because of the previous columns that we're adding. So let's select our still member. We want a 305 by 65 by 45. Unfortunately, we've got a 46, probably rounding error, because that project was done in Tekla. So there's that. Because we added columns and we changed our materials, our pay coating is going to pick up from that. Then we go to, you check our positioning. Our positioning is correct. We want it at the center. Then we come to our naming. And our naming, we want this as a rafter. So you just type R, then there you go. We've got the naming coming up as rafter. Then we close this. All right, so there's that method of using a line, construction line. So you can typically have a construction line of your portal frame, and then just convert those lines using the option of beam from polyline. So then the other part is to just simply pick up your points without using, a polyline. Just pick up your points and then place the beam that you want. So already it is picked up from the previous. We don't need to change anything. The only thing that we need to change is the model row to rafter. All right, so let's try and look at what we have done in a different view, in like realistic wireframe visual style. So you can take a look at it realistically. This is what you have. You can have shaded with gray. This is what it looks like. So I usually go back to realistic, and I usually like to color code my still members. So for columns, I prefer to use blue. Let's see if that has been added on our layers. So we don't have columns on our layers. So let's add a layer for columns. All right, let's bring this from the other screen. We add, and then we add columns. And then the color, we need, I prefer to add blue for the columns. Right. Then let's close that. So select our columns, select the two columns, go to our layer, add them under the layer for columns. So this is how you can manually add your columns and rafters manually.